In the spiritual journey, there is a symbol that has entered myth, scripture, and even popular spiritual life. The third eye. From the mystical praises of the Vedas and Upanishads, from the image of the god Shiva with his third eye burning to destroy illusion, to the rigorous exercises of opening the chakras, the third eye has always been seen as a secret gateway to higher wisdom, supernatural powers, and enlightenment. But the profound question is opening the third eye really the path to enlightenment, liberation? Or is it just a symbol, a metaphor, even a delusion when the seeker focuses too much on external phenomena instead of the inner essence? In Ramana Maharshi's Enlightenment philosophy, liberation is not the opening of a new sense, but the letting go of the one who is clinging to all the senses, the ego. It may sound paradoxical, but herein lies the key to awakening. Before delving into Maharshi's wisdom, let us step into the larger context to see why the concept of the third eye is so appealing in Indian tradition and global spirituality. The third eye in ancient traditions. 1. Origins in the Vedas and Upanishads. In the ancient Vedic scriptures, the third eye is often referred to as the center of transcendental knowledge. The Upanishads, which are the quintessence of Vedic philosophy, also refer to inner wisdom, seeing that does not come from the two physical eyes, but from the mind illuminated by the Atman, the true self. When the Rig Veda praises Agni, the god of fire, it is not only physical fire but also the inner fire that burns brightly in the middle of the forehead, symbolizing the light of consciousness that transcends duality. This can be seen as the root of the later concept of the third eye. 2. The eye of Shiva, destruction and liberation. The most prominent image in Indian culture is Shiva with the third eye. Legend has it that when he opens the third eye, Shiva burns away all illusions and desires. It refers to the ultimate power of awareness, which can destroy ignorance and open up freedom. However, in mythology, this eye is more symbolic than physical. It does not consist in seeing a mystical light, but in awakening from the illusion of the ego. 3. Yoga and the Ajna chakra. In the yoga tradition, the third eye is associated with the Ajna chakra, the energy center in the middle of the forehead, considered the seat of intuition and spiritual wisdom. The meditator focuses on Ajna to achieve dhyana, deep meditation, then progresses to samadhi, union with the self. From here, the West imported the concept of the third eye chakra and associated it with mystical experiences, psychic abilities, or intellectual enlightenment. Ramana Maharshi's view of the third eye. In the history of enlightened beings, Ramana Maharshi stands out as a beacon of light in a time of turmoil. He not only answered the seeker's question, but also transformed the entire way he asked it. For Maharshi, the question was not whether the third eye exists, nor by what method should it be opened, but who is longing to open it. When disciples recounted experiences of a bright light in the center of their foreheads, or of mysterious energy running down their spines, Maharshi did not deny them. He listened with deep compassion, then gently brought them back to the source. The important thing is not to open any more eyes, but to find out who it is who is longing to open them. The statement seems simple, but it contains a revolution in perception. 1. Why is experience not liberation? Maharshi asserts, all mystical lights, all psychic phenomena, even all trance states in meditation, all are still within the realm of the mind. And as products of the mind, they are only transient phenomena, they come and go, they exist and then disappear. Liberation, on the other hand, is that which never disappears. It is the unchanging foundation, beyond birth and death. Clinging to mystical experience is like stopping to admire the flowers along the path and forgetting the destination. For Maharshi, the truth is simple yet profound. Enlightenment is not the accumulation of more experiences, but the discovery of that which is already there. The eye that needs to be opened is not the forehead, but the eye of self-awareness. 2. The real eye, self-realization. In Maharshi's teachings, the third eye is merely a symbol, a metaphor for the awakening of consciousness. He emphasizes that the physical eye sees the world of form. The mental eye imagines and reason. But the self-realization eye is the fundamental seeing, the unchanging knowing that illuminates both. It is not an additional sense, but the source of all senses. In that light, you realize that you are not the body, not the feelings, not the mystical flashes of light that pass through meditation. You are not even the one who is trying to attain enlightenment. All these things come and go within you, and the real you never goes away. 3. The fundamental question, who am I? Maharshi gave humanity its sharpest tool, the question, who am I? This is the real eye that he wants everyone to open. When the thought of the third eye arises, ask, who is wanting to open this eye? When the mystical light appears, ask, who is seeing the light? When the desire for supernatural powers flares up, ask, who is wanting? This question is like a sword that cuts through all illusions. It does not allow you to wander in the maze of experience, but constantly brings you back to the observer himself. And at some point, you will see that the observer, the eye that is always searching, is also just an idea. When that idea dissolves, what remains is the pure self, the immortal light, the eye beyond all eyes. 4. There is no door to open. In Maharshi's view, the third eye is not a mystical door to open. Because in reality, there is no door at all. The door exists only when you believe that something is closed. But your true self has never been closed. The light of the self is always shining, only because you turn away from it that you think it does not exist. Enlightenment is not opening more, but removing the veil. When the ego dissolves, the eye of self-awareness that has always been there will reveal itself. In short, for Ramana Maharshi, opening the third eye is just a metaphor for the process of returning to oneself. It is not a mystical method, nor is it a shortcut. The eye that needs to be opened is not in the middle of the forehead, but in the deepest part of consciousness. The knowing that knows everything. And when you realize this, you see clearly, nothing has ever been closed, nothing has ever been opened, you are the light. Advaita Vedanta and self-realization, the path beyond the third eye. When it comes to the third eye, most spiritual seekers immediately think of a mystical experience. Seeing a violet light, witnessing divine images, hearing metaphysical sounds, or opening up superior intuition. Because of the attraction of these special experiences, many people stop at the phenomenon, and believe that it is the ultimate goal of the spiritual journey. But in the light of Advaita Vedanta, the ancient non-dual philosophy of India, which Ramana Maharshi lived and taught as his own breath, all images, lights, or subtle states are just fleeting phenomena in the mind. And since they belong to the mind, they are still within the vortex of ignorance, avidya. 1. Advaita Vedanta, non-dual truth. Advaita Vedanta teaches an ultimate truth. There is only one reality, Brahman. All distinctions between I and the world, the seer and the seen, are mere illusions, maya. As long as we cling to any phenomenon, be it a miraculous light or a supernatural power, we are still standing in the realm of duality. There is the seer and the seen, the experiencer and the experiencer. Thus, it is not liberation. This leads to an important conclusion. The third eye, though considered a symbol of supernatural knowledge, is still only a phenomenon within Maya. It cannot be the final door to liberation. 2. Ramana Maharshi and the path of self-inquiry. In many conversations, when aspirants asked him about the third eye, Ramana Maharshi simply smiled and said, "Instead of trying to open a new eye, find out who is trying to open that eye. When you reach the end, that eye disappears, and only the light of the self remains. That is the real eye." Here Maharshi touches the core of Advaita. Liberation is not the acquisition of another power, but the letting go of the one who is craving for power. When the seeker disappears, what remains is the non-dual reality. 3. Self-realization, the eye of all eyes. In the Kina Upanishad, there is a famous line. It is the ear of the ear, the eye of the eye, the mind of the mind, the life of life. The deeper meaning here is, there is a fundamental principle behind all the senses, which makes seeing, hearing, feeling possible. That principle is self-awareness. Ramana Maharshi emphasized, the third eye, truly understood, is not an additional sense, but the fundamental knowing, the light of consciousness itself. When we abide in self-awareness, we realize that there is nothing to open, no door to step through. Everything is already open, and we are that opening. Common misconceptions about the third eye. In the spiritual journey, the third eye is a fascinating concept. But it is precisely this attraction that has led many people into misunderstanding. Ramana Maharshi has repeatedly pointed out the three greatest illusions that spiritual practitioners often fall into. 1. Desire for supernatural powers. Many people enter the spiritual path with a desire for power. To see the future, to read minds, to heal diseases, or even to control the physical world. They believe that opening the third eye will give them that power. But Maharshi warns, all supernatural powers belong to the mind. If you cling to supernatural powers, you will lose liberation. Supernatural powers, whether real or not, are like toys in the hands of children. They may amaze us for a while, but in the end they only make the mind busier, clinging more tightly to illusion. The true seeker must ignore the allure of psychic powers and go straight to the ultimate goal, freedom from the ego. 2. Experiencing the mystical light. Some people in meditation see a bright light in the middle of their forehead, hear a melodious sound, or feel energy running down their spine. They are convinced that this is a sign that the third eye has opened. Maharshi explains, all lights, sounds, and images in meditation are just mental phenomena. They come and go, are there and then gone, are not permanent. Meanwhile, liberation does not come and go. It is the unchanging stillness that is always present. If you cling to the mystical light, it is like stopping on the side of the road and mistaking it for the destination. 3. Equating the third eye with enlightenment. This is perhaps the biggest misunderstanding. Many people think that simply opening the third eye will immediately lead to enlightenment. But Maharshi emphasizes, enlightenment is not a new state to be attained, but the realization of that which is always present. The third eye, if it exists, is only a symbol of awakening. It is not a shortcut, nor a magic key. The real eye is the realization of the non-dual nature, where there is no seer and no seen, only the light of the self that shines eternally. Maharshi's mindfulness practice turning inward instead of searching outside. Ramana Maharshi, the great master of simplicity and directness, has repeatedly emphasized that the path is not outside, but within us. 1. Why turn inward? Maharshi once said, "There is nothing new to be achieved. Just remove the false, the true will reveal itself." This reveals a fundamental secret: all external searches are just wandering around in illusion. No matter how many windows of knowledge we open, how many realms we experience, it is still just a movement in the mind. And the mind is inherently dynamic, it cannot contain the unchanging truth. Turning inward is not an act of closing oneself off, of escaping the world, but of returning to one's own center, where all questions stop and the light of the self shines. 2. Practice self-inquiry. Who am I? All practices promise a path: meditation, mantras, yoga, asceticism, mystical contemplation. But Maharshi, in his ultimate simplicity, offers only one key: the inquiry, who am I? When a thought arises, instead of following it, ask, who is thinking this? When an emotion arises, turn around, who is feeling? When there is a desire to open the third eye, ask yourself, who is it that wants to open that eye? Such inquiry is not for the sake of verbal answers, but for the dissolution of the imaginary I. When the false I dissolves, pure existence, the self, shines forth by itself. 3. Mindfulness is not a technique, but a way of life. In many places, mindfulness is taught as a technique: mindful breathing, observing emotions, noting thoughts. But for Maharshi, mindfulness is life itself, not a method to be added. He taught, mindfulness is not doing something, but ceasing to identify with what is not you. This means mindfulness is not limited to sitting in meditation, but extends throughout all activities: eating, talking, walking, sleeping. Just remember to ask, who is experiencing this? We immediately return to the position of the witness. 4. The difference between spiritual experience and dwelling in the self. Many meditators see light, hear wonderful sounds, feel strange energy, and quickly assume that this is mindfulness. But Maharshi makes it clear, every experience has a beginning and an end. What has a beginning will disappear. The true self does not come and go, it is always present. Therefore, abiding in self-awareness is beyond all experience. It is not a phenomenon to be grasped, but the eternal foundation that makes all phenomena appear. 5. Living mindfully in everyday life, applying the teachings. The practice of turning inward is not just for sitting in a cave like Maharshi in Aranakula. It is the way we live each day. When angry, stop and ask yourself, who is angry? Anger disappears when the owner of it disappears. When worried, look back, who is worried? Immediately, we see that worry is just a passing cloud. When happy, when sad, when loving or lonely, instead of running after, we turn in and realize the unchanging witness in all changes. Thus, according to Maharshi, mindfulness is not strange or esoteric, but is your own natural aliveness. 6. Returning, not a step, but a stopping. A key point in Maharshi's teaching is, enlightenment is not a journey, but a stopping. There is no need to seek a distant place, no need to open a new eye. Just stop in this very existence and realize, I am not this body. I am not these thoughts. I am not the one who is struggling to find enlightenment. What remains, the luminous stillness, is the self. In short, according to Maharshi, the true practice of awakening does not consist in opening any more eyes, but in recognizing the one eye that always sees everything, the eye of self-awareness. And only when we return, letting go of all external searches, can we truly taste a freedom that no supernatural power can compare to.